I think we'll go on to the Save Tolka Park campaign, because it's a huge talking point at the moment, and these are getting the word around really, really well. So tell us why and when and how did it all start?
Well, I think it started for us, and when we kind of realized, that the sale of Tolka Park was going to happen, or was planned to happen, in order to fund the refurbishment and the rebuild, or the new build, stadium on the Dalymount site. Obviously, all 4 stands there are currently planned to be knocked, and there will be a new stadium basically on the Dalymount site. And the city council brought a proposal that they would dispose of a number of sites all at once, and Tolka Park was to be one of them. This is in 2020, at the start of that year. So I think for a while there was a lot of conversations, I think, amongst Shells fans, and also we had a lot of conversations as well politically with activists locally and so forth. And out of that came the campaign. And I think it's obviously not to pat ourselves too much on the back. I think it's a real template, I think, for football fans, and how football fans can organise. You need to be grounded in your community. I think sometimes football fans can be perhaps guilty of not always communicating why something is important. But with this, we've really found something that's resonated massively. And that's the absolute cornerstone of our campaign, which is that public land is for public use. I think everybody, sports fans, football fans or not, they understand the housing crisis that's enveloping the country at the moment. They understand that we can't just keep selling off land to developers and amenities to developers in the hope that something, good comes of it. And I think that's really struck a chord with people. And like I said, it's a campaign that's not just about football fans. It's not just about one football club. It has now gotten great support from community activists, from residents, and from a lot of football players as well. We've been very grateful to have endorsements from the likes of Jack Byrne, who I know comes, I believe, from the inner city area there in the North Inner City, and that's really helped our campaign massively. And look, we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going, and we're going to keep persuading and keep talking about our case.
Yeah, there's not only just a housing crisis though in Ireland, there is an amenities crisis with so many houses being built up. I know I'm out in Lucan, and what they're doing is they're building house after house, estate after estate. It's going up by the thousands. Lucan used to be 20,000, now it's nearly 60,000 and still going up. But the amenities aren't matching the houses that are there. And I can see the houses are being built and there's not even any green land for them, area space for them to play football. And kids are playing football out on the roads again. And we all fantasize about how great it was when people were out on the roads playing football back in the day. But now the cars, the trucks, the speed they're driving around these days, you just can't do that now. So it's completely different. So we need amenities around the area. So this is a great reason why Tolka Park needs to be kept on.
No, absolutely right. And at our launch, which is available to view on our YouTube channel, if people search for YouTube, Save Tolka Park, they will be able to watch our full launch event. And Una Mullally, again, I don't think Una is a football fan, it's fair to say, but, she was very taken by the campaign and has wrote about it herself. And she said, there's a real appropriation by, certain interests of the housing crisis, where the mantra then becomes kind of build, build, build. And whilst we do need housing, we probably need a higher density of housing. I think realistically, that's probably fair to say. But, it can't just cap it at any cost. Capital goes where the profit is. And, if it's profitable to build a load of student apartments with no amenities, if it's profitable to build apartment hotels or hotels with no amenities, that is what, that is what capital will do, and that will be what money in private development will do. We don't think that's good enough. We actually think that we can really be a stake in the ground. There's already been a number of stakes in the ground planted by, for instance, those behind the O'Devany Gardens campaign. That was not successful in terms of preventing the sale of the site, but has been completely vindicated by what's now happened with that site. But it's been put in place as well by campaigners on the Oscar Traynor Road site, and we think we're that as well. And look, there is something particular about a football ground. Anybody connected with football in the country knows Tolka Park. Most people connected with football in the country have been there, and most of them have a fond memory of it. So this notion that we can save it and that we can turn it back and that we can start to say, look, this really isn't good enough, whether it's developments in places like Lucan or so forth, that's an incredibly important thing to do. And And I would really appeal to anybody who feels that way, even if they're not necessarily based in Dublin, to very much help with our campaign, because this is something that we can help out, and we do want to help other campaigns as well in relation to playing fields or public land for public use. And if people want to get in contact with us, we'd very much welcome that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so if there's whoever's watching, if you want to send in your comments or your support, let us know just on YouTube or Facebook. Send in any comments you want. What is the proposal? So a lot of people would have heard it. I'm sure there's some people who would have seen it and not really heard the ins and outs. So just give us a bit of a look at what you are proposing and how you actually think you can get around it. And finances are always the biggest dilemma.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to look at the details of the proposal, they can go to savetolkapark.com/proposal. Innovative, I know, but there they can view the proposal. And essentially what we're proposing to do would be to refurbish and reseat two of the main stands in Tolka, basically the ones that are sort of on the long sides of the pitch. So that would be the sort of Richmond Road stand and the Riverside stand. And that would be a fairly simple, reasonable job to do, we think. The real kind of innovation and the real community benefit that comes in at both ends of the ground. And, in terms of community benefit, we believe Tolka has done so much for the city. It's been there since 1924, hosted a lot of internationals, hosted a lot of big games, hosted interesting things like Arkle or the Harlem Globetrotters. But it can do more. It can be made to work harder. And so that's why we want to install a hybrid pitch. And at both ends of the ground, at one end where the new stand is now, we want to install basically a sort of 3-story community facilities building that would provide an enterprise center, cafe, and a few other facilities. And at the other end of the ground, we want to install a sort of shorter profile stand. And we want to open access to the River Tolka through that stand, which is something the residents have wanted for a long time, and would also help permeability between that area and over into Croke Park and Clonliffe Park as well, if people know where that is. There's massive development going in there as well, which will be a build to rent model as well. Unfortunately, a lot of those homes won't be available for purchase, and they won't be affordable. But that site will still be important to maintain permeability with Erwin. So that's what we're proposing. We think it's pretty reasonable in terms of the money that's going around in the city at the moment for development. It's costed at between 10 to 14 million, just under 14 million, depending on the contingency we think would be required. And we think it's possible. We think it's doable, and we've got a few funding sources. And again, those are viewable in our proposal as well.
Okay, so Shelbourne are not supporting this, is that correct?
Well, we've briefed the board of Shelbourne Football Club. They've explained our position to us, which is that they have made a commitment to the Dalymount Park deal. As I've said to everybody, this is not a campaign about Shelbourne Football Club, and this is not a campaign about Shelbourne Football Club's position. This is a campaign about affecting the democratic policy of Dublin City Council and of central government. We don't think that one stadium should be sacrificed for another. We think that central government should fund both stadiums, and should fund recreation and sport in the city. And that's fundamentally what our campaign is about. And I think we hope that once we have gotten to that point, that will be a point where we can have a conversation about who plays in those stadiums, who is the anchor tenant for those stadiums, and so on and so forth. Look, I think the Shelbourne Football Club board, speaking personally, I think they're very traumatized by the events of 2007. The club nearly went very close to going out of existence. And thanks to the efforts of an awful lot of people who worked very, very hard, the club is still around. Dalymount was the deal on the table in order to progress the club forward, as they felt at the time, and they took it. But we're now in a position, I think, where when we can re-examine these things, and Dalymount has proven to be costly, has proven to have long delays, and also crucially, we feel there is a better way. We feel the preservation of both stadiums and both sites in public ownership of some description is the way to go.
Okay. So can you see a world where the two of them just might not happen, that they might go to push to the wayside, I suppose?
Well, you mean sort of both remain as they are?
Yeah, I mean, because you're looking at, for the Dalymount Park project, they're saying that they're dependent on Tolka Park being sold. Obviously, if Tolka Park isn't sold, then I don't know if you're going to call it an excuse, or it's a knock-on effect. But Dalymount probably doesn't happen then. Could it be a case that you just see no refurbishment and it's as was, and we're left with two stadiums that are, falling apart is you can't really say anything other than they are starting to fall apart. That the age is there. So, are we expecting more from our politicians, or are we saying, listen, we demand that these stadiums be refurbished, and not that, obviously you're saying not that one or the other, but we actually are demanding the two stadiums rather than just saving Tolka Park. It is also about saving Dalymount Park.
Yeah, look, in terms of a scenario of that unfolding, I don't think so. And here's a simple reason why. Look, credit to Bohemians, along with John Delaney at the time. They did a very good job of getting the residents of Phibsborough excited, of getting them really behind this project. And they lobbied hard with the council. And, because of the narrative that Dalymount is the home of Irish football, they got that engaged and they made that happen. A similar process was not engaging at Tolka Park and with the residents around there. And this is a process we're now engaging in. So we think that work is going to pay off, even in a situation where Tolka isn't sold. Look, we think it's a matter of everybody getting around the table, looking at it and seeing, how we can go again and how we can make this happen. And I think there's very much a way to make that happen, even in those circumstances. I think that's a conversation that the football community and the city council and central government really should welcome.
Okay. Is there a plan to try and help fund this? Because are we looking just for government funding?
Well, there's a number of different sources that we've talked about. Look, speaking personally, I think both clubs financially are in a better position than they were. And I think professional and semi-professional football in the city probably shouldn't expect a completely free ride. So, that should be something that should be looked at, I think, potentially. But there are other sources. We've identified one thing, which is the Irish Immigration Investor Programme. And that was used by Meath GAA to source a donation of €400,000 to provide matching funding from the Large Scale Sports Infrastructure Fund. That program is, politically, I personally don't agree with it, because I think citizenship should be given to people who have been here a long time and who've worked hard for it. But it is given to people who are foreign nationals of other countries who can make large financial donations to causes. So I think that's one source, for instance, that we could look. The other source, I think, is an interesting one. So if you've looked at England, you've seen some cases of cooperative fan-based investment in stadiums. FC United's ground was built using a lot of that kind of funding. Merton Stadium, the new stadium for AFC Wimbledon, that's allowed them to return to the borough of Wimbledon, that's used cooperative fan investment as well. So look, we think we've built something in terms of the Tolka Park, Save Tolka Park campaign, and in terms of the movement that's there. We've got great support from people with all sorts of different skills. And look, every problem has a solution, and we think it's possible. And ultimately, look, people I think can and will put their hands in their pockets to fund things like this. And obviously, central government has a role to play in that too. I personally am not a fan of austerity. I think there should be, especially after COVID, there should be some government spending to help with this. But there are other means of doing that too, and I think we'd be willing to explore that. And like I said, the sale of public land to fund stuff we don't think is acceptable.
Well, as I've said before, it's not government money, it's our money. We put the money in through our taxes. They get paid through our taxes. They need to start listening to the people and what we need and what we deserve, I suppose, as well. Is it frustrating when you hear the begrudgers sort of poking holes in your plan? Are you getting much of that? Obviously, I'm going to say there's more support. I'm going to guess that there's more support. But are you getting much of that?
No, and look, there are some substantive, critiques and criticisms of our campaign, as there is of most campaigns and as there is of most projects. But we haven't heard much negativity at all. And look, privately, everybody acknowledges that Tolka Park really shouldn't be sacrificed. Obviously, our sort of appeal would be, well, if it's not logical, nobody wants it. and everybody would regret Tolka Park going. Why is it then that we're still insisting on pursuing this path? So yeah, look, and look, to be fair, even where people have had criticisms, they've been fairly open and they've been fairly polite. So, look, I think it's been fine. And look, the ultimate thing about criticism as well is it makes your case stronger. We went through a huge process internally within the campaign of just trying to anticipate anything people could say, and we came up with pretty good answers. We think we don't have all the answers, but we had most of them. So, yeah, we're pretty happy that we had a strong case.
In the case that Shelbourne decide they want to stick with the Dalymount Park scenario, who uses the stadium?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of uses that could be used for it, and like I said, even if Shells were to stay there, or the stadium was to be retained and Shells were to stay there, the stadium does have to do more. There's a lot of local clubs who could use it, and and we think that it could retain a use in that way. Especially the women's National League teams. I don't think it would make a whole lot of sense, and I don't think it's fair for instance, both Bows and Shells women's teams to play out of Tolka, but not be able to play in Dalymount in Bows' case. And that's why we're making the argument that there is a risk if there's one stadium fixture congestion, and the fact that Bows WNL team doesn't play in Dalymount at the moment. There may be some neglect, we think, of the WNL teams. I know myself, I don't have children, but if I do have kids, it doesn't matter what gender they are. I do want to make them. I do want to bring the games, and I don't have to explain to my daughter, or I don't think anybody should have to explain to their daughter why a WNL team plays in a lesser facility to a men's team. So that's another concern we think that we have. So yeah, that's it. And look, to be honest, I think for all of us, we really want to preserve the stadium in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, ideally, in the shape of our proposal. But I think all of us would be happy if we kept the site in public hands. And look, from what happens from there, I suppose is in the lap of the gods. But again, we think it would make sense for everybody to have a conversation and see where things go.
Yeah. Is there room for expansion afterwards? I look at the Dalymount Park one, 6,000 all-seater stadium. The images look great. It makes it look, fresh. I suppose that we're all begging for our stadiums to look fresh. But when you look at 6,000 fans, it isn't big for the League of Ireland if the league is looking to progress. Shelbourne will fill that stadium or Bows will fill that stadium for a lot of fixtures because they've got good support, and there's other teams. You look at Sligo, Dundalk, Shamrock Rovers, they'll bring crowds there. They'll fill that stadium. And well, that's a good thing. If we want the league to progress, we obviously want to get more people in. We're looking to if we promote our league much better, I think a 10,000 seater one is, you're kind of looking forward your 10 years or your 15 years that you're looking for the crowds to go up. So I think 6,000 for Dalymount Park is the wrong way, and I think they should change and look for something different there. I think they're sort of undercutting themselves, especially when it's gone from 10 million up to 35 million. I just think it's madness. Great, that's for the community, and there's loads of different things, but the extra seating I think they would benefit from. And of course, the more money that's coming in, the more likely there's more jobs and etc. What about Tolka? Will that be it? Is there enough room to be able to do anything after that, or is that kind of the all you have really?
Well, I think there's a few things to say. I think one is, and the most important thing to remember with this is, and there is an argument over, well, the city doesn't need two stadiums on the north side. Look, if we want to grow and expand the league, two stadiums that serve completely different arterial points in the city, really are crucial to maintain. The distance between the two might be short, but one has to remember that, for instance, our strength traditionally is, from the last, since we've been in that stadium now, which is 32 years, and most of the fans that come from there, I'm 35 now myself, that's the only stadium we know. And our strength comes from, going out towards that northeastern side of the city, Clontarf, Marino, Fairview, all out to, Portmarnock, places like that. Once you remove the stadium from that access, it becomes a bit more difficult for people to go to. And we think then, we're essentially competing for the same group of fans between us and Bows. And, there would only be one winner because Bows have been there, since their foundation.
Yeah.
So in terms of the growth of the league in the city, we think that would affect it. And a similar thing you can see happen with Shamrock Rovers after they moved out of Glenmalure. That part of the city was very strong for football and very strong for League of Ireland football. And, since then, I think it's fair to say Milltown, into areas like that, that sort of southern part of the city, it's very strong for rugby now. It's very strong for GAA. It isn't so strong for soccer. So I think, again, we have to really reflect and really consider what we're doing before these things happen. In terms of capacity of the stadium, it's important to remember as well, when it was first floated, it was supposed to be, or reported to be, Daily was reported to be a 10,000 seater stadium for 20 million. That cost is now, and for a Category 4 stadium as well, which allows you to play in the group stage of the Champions League. The costs have risen and it's gone down to Category 3 stadium, 6,000 seater. But the other thing to keep remember as well is, and look, I have a very specific viewpoint of this one, me personally. I kind of like the league. I wouldn't say how it is, but I certainly like it in terms of, it doesn't have to be big, we don't have to have 10,000, people in a stadium, that kind of stuff. I think 6,000 and our proposal sort of shows how we can have a 6,000 capacity stadium in Tolka. That would probably be, just fine. Because the problem is, if you have, for instance, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people in a 6,000 seater stadium, that's one thing. If you have the same in a 10,000 seater, I think that the atmosphere really gets lost, and that would really what I would fear. So I can hear what you're saying, but there's other kind of perspectives on it too, I think.
Yeah, I can hear what you're saying too. Yeah, a small full stadium has a great atmosphere. I can understand it. I'm always looking forward, trying to get the league a little bit bigger. I never think we'll get to the 20, the 30,000s or anything like that, but I always think 10,000 is, if we can grow the game, I think just with more marketing of the league is just needs that marketing just to throw it out there. You see so much over in Scotland where the football isn't any much, not much better or even better, but they just market it so well over there that they get the crowds to the grounds. And if we can get that, and I mean, some clubs are now connecting to different areas around, like there's room in Dublin for teams, because even though they say there's too many teams in Dublin, but there's room. There's so many people in Dublin, so and football is the biggest sport in the country. They can say what they like about GAA, but the most participated sport is football. So people are out there, they love the game. So we just got to get them and drag them into the sport. So anyhow, we'll agree. I don't think any of us are wrong on that one. At the moment, yeah, that's the way it is. And I'd be just looking 10, 15 years down the road. So that's not a thing. The community-based model that you have, is this something that you think that the league as a whole should look into?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think traditionally some clubs have been guilty of kind of, putting on a team and, having a stadium and kind of, cursing the darkness instead of lighting a candle in terms of, how they're based. I think Sligo's proposal, if you've seen that, is really good. And, it acknowledges, and look, credit to Sligo, they're a very community-based club there. That stems, I think, from their fan ownership basis, and what they've done there throughout the years is really been magnificent. And, like this is the thing, and I suppose it comes back to kind of what do we kind of want the league to be? I mean, it could be, like you could have a lot of, capital and investment coming in from England or from other places, and, having these great teams and all this kind of stuff. Although, as we've seen at Dundalk, putting in investment in capital and venture capital, it doesn't always work. And so I think for us, it's about having that conversation about that. And yeah, look, having a community basis, making sure that, things are reciprocal between its local community and the football team, I think is really important. And look, the other thing as well I'd say about this is I think that one thing we do need to argue for in Tolka Park and other places is, going to football games is of community benefit, is a good thing. It's good for people to have connections like that. It's good for people to have a good place to go where, for instance, I mean, there is bars and a lot of grants, but it isn't all about alcohol. It isn't all about drinking. And that's incredibly important for young people. It's incredibly important if you want to, get kids into games, especially girls, if you want to set a good example for them by watching WNL teams. And so that's really, I think, the basis of things. And yeah, look, I think I would be quite strong, and it would be great if we could look at 50 plus 1 rule here, or something which would enable community, involvement, and would mean that, no one team can sort of accelerate out of view or can do anything like that. So, yeah, no, the community basis of the stadium is really important, and like we said, it's an amenity at the moment, but we want to make sure that it's kept as one, and that its usage is expanded.
Yeah, and I think when we look back at the pandemic, the biggest thing for most people around the world was seeing their football or seeing their sport continue on, and it just kept everyone going, and it is the real I suppose relaxant. It's a stress buster. It's just it fills people with joy, and to get rid of amenities like that just doesn't seem to make sense at all whatsoever. So I think we're all behind the Tolka Park situation 100%. If people want to help, if people want to get in touch, how do they do that?
So people can go to savetolkapark.com, and there you have our contact details. You can view our proposal, and most crucially, and this is the number one thing we're asking everybody to do, is you can contact your local TD, or if you live in the Dublin City Council area, you can contact your local councillor with some tools and templates that we've provided there. That's the biggest thing you can do. It only takes, it'll barely take you 5 minutes. And so, yeah, we really want people to do that. So that would be the biggest help. But of course, if you want to get in contact with us or follow us on social media, all of our social medias accounts are Save Tolka Park. So that's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So just Save Tolka Park and savetolkapark.com. Great.
What's your favorite Tolka moment?
Yeah, I was asked this before. It's really hard for me. Yeah, I have a few great moments. Actually, the one thing which I just kind of recall actually is so my I must have been about 10 maybe. This is gonna be a weird one, but we had Sheffield Wednesday. We're playing Sheffield Wednesday in a friendly. I remember finding it so strange and just kind of off-putting that we had a lot of these Irish people there in Sheffield Wednesday kind of jerseys, and I couldn't understand because I was so little. I couldn't understand why, Shells are so great. Why doesn't everybody follow Shells? Why are they talking about these English teams? And I remember Mark Rutherford actually scored a great diving header, and I was so I remember I kind of went back into to school and told told my classmates, like, I went to a live football match and saw this great diving header, and obviously Mark was a favorite player of mine as well at the time. So just a little moment like that, I think says so much. Look, apart from that, Dave Rogers' goal against Hijack Split is hard to beat. I was in the Ballybock end with my father, my grandfather, and there was these two guys ahead of us. They were pretty merry. They brought in a few cans. My grandfather's a teetotaler and kind of was very nervous around people drinking. So one guy was like, he was like, oh, I'm a Bows fan, but I'm going to support Shells tonight, And my dad said, oh, yeah, maybe they're on the Brendan Beaton Memorial drink. But I never forget, when that goal went in, the two guys in front of us, and they had their open cans, they actually they jumped up. And the
everyone
all over my grandfather. My grandfather was nearly ready to deck these guys. And I was like, oh, sorry, bud. And it's just, even though it's a goal that lives in my own memory, and I watch it on YouTube, for me it was
that moment.
It was a moment with my dad and my granddad, and my granddad is still alive actually, and he's 88 this year actually, and we went to a game in Tolka in 2019, and yeah, look, that's it for me. The memories I have of football, they're all tied in with memories of my life, and look, no doubt about it, I want those memories to continue for as long as I can,